Hey everyone, David C. Anderson here coming at you from the Knife Center, and it is time for our New Knives of the Week video where we take a look at the coolest new knives that have just hit our shelves. Let's check them out. Starting off this week with a couple more exclusives. We've been having a lot of good exclusives launch recently. New versions of the ProTech Emerson CQC7 automatics coming in at $225. And we've got two versions. Stonewash blade, which is what you have here, as well as a bead blasted blade option, which is something new, kind of cool. Blade length, about 3 1/4. You got 154 cm steel, and in true kind of Emerson vibe, this is actually a chisel ground blade. You've got no secondary bevel there on the reverse side. So very traditional in terms of kind of that Emerson styling, and kind of nice, especially now when it's kind of hard to get your hands on Emerson knives these days. The handle, standard aluminum frame, but on the front, we've got an orange micarta with a black top layer that's kind of milled away to give you this kind of diamond, or what should we call that? It's kind of a checkered texture, so to speak, there on the back side. Gives you a little bit of grip, and it lets the orange peek out a little bit as well. And of course, it is a ProTech, so you got that nice push button automatic action. One of the best in the business, just feels fantastic. And of course, being exclusives, you can only get these here. Next up is another exclusive, which if you were watching our best Bushcraft knives under $100 video earlier this week, you've already seen this, but making its official new knives debut is our version of the Real Steel Bushcraft Plus, coming in at $90. For that, you've got a 14C28N Sandvik steel blade. So really good, tough stainless steel, especially in this kind of price range. Almost 3/16 of an inch thick and full convex geometry going all the way down to the edge with just a little hint of micro bevel there at the edge. Very strong grind, built to kind of take a beating, so to speak, which is handy more than just for Bushcraft things. This is a little bit of a crossover knife in my mind. Does the Bushcraft stuff, certainly, but kind of as a crossover Bushcraft slash survival design a little bit there. Maybe stronger in that regard if it had a little bit more of a finger guard, but you do have a little bit there. And overall a nice neutral, neutral's the wrong word, but a nice comfortable handle that is going to work in a wide variety of grips. You've got some really good swells going on, fills my palms very nicely. And the exclusive bit of this knife is this handle material. It's a golden ebony, so each piece is going to look a little bit different. This one's got some really nice grain going on, a little bit lighter than the one we looked at earlier this week. Lucky number 13 on this guy as well. Now, in a way, you can kind of think of these knives as kind of a budget alternative to something like a Bark River, which, good knives, don't get me wrong, but they are a bit pricey. So if that's just beyond your reach right now, but you're looking for that kind of vibe, you can get it here. It's got that convex geometry. It's got a nicer handle material than the standard black G10 this normally comes in, so you get that kind of upscaled vibe that a lot of the Bark Rivers have. And the fit and finish here is great. You've got nice flush leveling of the spine all around that full tang construction. Nice hidden lanyard point here at the back, so you can bury your lanyard in there without it kind of interfering with the ergonomics of the handle. And you've even got a nice crisp spine there for doing a little bit of the fire steel striking, but it's not going to really tear up your thumb too much because they gave you a little bit of jimping, which is a little bit gentler under the thumb when you're really needing to push down on it. Now, I think the Bark River comparison even goes another step further when you look at the sheath this comes with. Kind of very similar vibes to what you get with some of those knives. Standard leather, undyed, so you can dye it something like personalize it to yourself if you wanted it to. Make it any shade of brown, fancier colors, blue, red, green, whatever, or even black. Or of course, you could just leave it natural and let it develop kind of its own character from use as time goes on. The options there are limited only by the dye at your local leather supply store. But the quality is nice, real good. You've got a nice thick welt on the side and a hole spacing here that's actually compatible with a large tech lock, even though you do have a standard belt loop on the back. So if you're inventive, you could probably do some fun things with those grommets right there. All right, we've also got two folders from Real Steel this week, two new collaborations with Poltergeist Works. The first is the Phasma. Now this knife comes in two different versions right now, two different new versions, I should say. Previous versions did come with D2 steel. This guy has been upgraded in the materials department, which we'll get to in a second. But you've got a thumb stud version as well as this two-hand opening version. Still a locking blade. You do have that frame lock there on the back, but this with the dual fullers on each side to act as kind of your nail pull is a two-handed blade. I will say though, you probably, you could get away with two-hand opening this in a pinch, literally and figuratively. If you kind of pinch the edge there with your thumb and middle finger, you could rotate that out if you really needed it to. But it's definitely not smooth and definitely not very fast to do. Materials here, we have titanium for those handles with that frame lock there on the back, and M390 for the blades, about 3.3 inches of it. Great blade shape for EDC, I think. You've got a full flat grind, so it's gonna slice really well, and a good profile for kind of pushing through heavier materials here at the back when you need to. You've got a lot of blade width there to stand up behind that edge, but you can still do some really fine detail stuff because you have a very acute point here at the tip. Now the handles kind of back up that kind of dual mission there, the hard use or heavier use combined with some delicate operations. You have enough of a enough strength in that handle for a solid grip, but as you can see, it's gonna carry pretty unobtrusively. It's fairly slim, it's fairly plain, but not in a boring kind of way. You have a bit more of that understated vibe. Something maybe like a Chris Reeve Sebenza, not that I'm saying this is any kind of Sebenza alternative, but it's not bad. You do have some of that kind of classier vibe going on. And an almost deep carry pocket clip right side, tip up only. And you have a little bit of adornment with that kind of brass standoff there at the back. And you know what? I'm kind of gonna walk back one of the things I said earlier. The more I've handled this, as we're going through this video, I actually do think this would be a decent kind of budget alternative to a Chris Reeve Sebenza. It's not a cheap knife, don't get me wrong. We're coming in about $212 these days. But especially the thumb stud version is not a bad alternative for less than half the price of a standard Sebenza. Yeah, let's go with that. Let's go with that. It's definitely not gonna beat a Sebenza, but it's not bad. It's not bad at all. Definitely check that guy out. Next one from Real Steel is another Poltergeist Works collab, as I alluded to earlier. This is the Stella, and this is a slip joint folding knife, non-locking with that traditional slip joint leaf spring there at the back. And this is kind of a bigger brother to the Luna slip joint, which has been an incredibly successful knife up to this point. This guy right here coming in about 79 bucks and some change, so just under $80. Blade length is about 3 inches. You've got VG10 stainless steel here rather than the D2 on the Luna. Slightly different blade shape as well from the Luna. It's a bit more of a modified Wharncliffe than a traditional drop point, but you still have that nice high or full flat grind in this case, along with a dual set of fullers for the opening action. Also similarly to the Luna, you've got a small section of jimping here right behind the heel of the blade, right around the pivot. That gives you two things, not only just a little bit of textural detail there, so you know right where your finger is, you're not gonna creep up onto the edge, at least if you try real hard, you could, but at least you have a kind of a warning strip right there. And that also gives you a little bit of protection. If the knife were to start to close on you, your finger is gonna be a little bit in the way of that moving. So not gonna protect you from like a big oopsie, but maybe some of the little oopsies out there. In typical Real Steel slip joint fashion, you do have a stop along the travel on the close, not a half stop like as traditional with most folks. They call it a half stop. I always call it like a 2/3, one third stop. I'm just gonna start calling it the Real Steel stop or something. But it is a safety measure actually. So if you're moving fast, you can kind of get your fingers out of the way after you hit kind of that first stage of the close. We've got a nice milled pocket clip on this guy, not as deep carry as the Luna with its folded over pocket clip, but a little bit nicer here. And this particular one is a green G10, but there's a few different handle colors available. Orange, black, and red at the very least. We might have a few more too, I'm not sure. A couple nice details on the back of the spine too. You do have a little bit of a cutout on the back spring here, gives you a little bit of a see-through, as well as a nice little hidden lanyard point at the back as well. All right, this next knife is a different company, but has almost the same colors going on, right down to the blade finish as well. It's the new mini version, or the compact version of the CRKT Provoke, coming in about 150 bucks right now. So it's right in between the full fat standard size version and the lightweight full size version, the Grivery. That comes in at about $100 and $200 for the original. So right in the middle there with slightly scaled down dimensions. You still have D2 blade steel, just like the full fat version, and standard metal construction as opposed to lightweight Grivery for the handles themselves. Now, if you're not familiar with the Provoke series, it's essentially a karambit that opens spine side as opposed to rotating the blade open. And it's a very fast deployment with this guy. You have your finger in the index ring right here, thumb sits right on the back of those hinges, and you can push that blade out very quickly. Of course, nice things about that are the blade's almost impossible to fold closed on your fingers, and of course, that quick speed of access. I will say this is the compact version. If you do have larger hands, mine I always say are a little slightly larger than average, and I feel a little close to the edge personally, depending on my grip. So for me, I'd probably go with the full size version, but if you have kind of an average medium to large size glove or smaller, you should be in good shape. Really wish my hands fit these though, because I think this is by far the best looking Provoke they've done so far. I really like the cool tones going on, the heavy stonewashed finish on that chisel ground D2 blade. Everything comes together, I think, really nicely. Next up from CRKT is the latest in the Minimalist, the Fultz Minimalist series. This is the Persian, and it comes in about 26 bucks. And in addition to this new blade shape for this series, you've got a few upgrades going on here. First of all, the handles themselves are a little bit larger than some of the original Provokes out there. It's still a very compact knife, but there's a little bit more to hold on to overall. Gives you a little bit more confidence if you're gonna push this blade around a little bit. And on that front, we've got an 8CR series stainless here, which is nothing super exciting in the world of steels these days, but it is an upgrade over the 5CR series stainless that they used to use and still do use in some of the other blade shapes out there. So you get a little bit more edge retention to kind of back up your intent with this blade. I do think it's a little amusing personally that they went with a name like Persian for this knife, because the thing that I see immediately as soon as I saw this blade the first time is it reminded me of the old Schrade Sharp Finger, just a classic American style hunting knife that, not made in USA anymore, unfortunately, but it's just one of those iconic profiles. And I was immediately drawn to the vibes that I got from this knife, recollecting that old school knife. Definitely it's going to pierce well with that acute tip, although it's not, you do have to adjust your grip a little bit because it is very nearly a trailing point going on. You know what? It is actually a trailing point, I'd say. It looks like the tip is just a little bit above the line of the spine there, so we're gonna go with that. In addition to that, you've got a good slicing profile, probably a better slicing profile on this blade shape than any of the other Minimalists so far. Nice hollow grind here, keeping the edge thin enough for some of those more delicate jobs. Sheath, you probably know exactly what to expect. Simple hard molded plastic clicks in, and you've got your cordage there on the side for neck carry with a little slider to kind of help you with the length adjustment as you need it. Next up, we've got a new Squiddy trainer from Squid Industries. This is the Squiddy-U. Essentially new colorway going on, like I mentioned. We've got the blue handles with the standard black quote-unquote blade. This is a trainer. There's no sharp edges here at all. And this is made with acetal. I may be saying that wrong, but it's a thermoplastic that they use here to keep the weight down and the price down as well. These are about 60 bucks, even though the pivots use the same kind of construction that their more pricey balisongs use. In a way, this is kind of an intermediate step between kind of the metal trainers out there and something like the Cold Steel FGX balisongs, which are kind of all plastic construction and have a much, I don't want to say toy-like feel, but it's definitely a more plasticky feel. This one still feels a little bit plasticky, obviously, but the fact that the pivots are constructed the way they are completely changes the feel from something like those FGXs. It's much more smooth and even a little bouncy in a way. Seth V, our Instagram guy, was saying earlier, that's kind of the reaction he had to these, and probably comes down just to kind of that plastic construction. It makes it feel very kind of lively as you move it around. But if you're looking for a trainer out there and don't want to mess around with some of the metal stuff up there, maybe you are worried a little bit about compliance or legality else in certain places, the plastic here might help you out a little bit in that regard, and it's certainly going to keep it from being quite as damaging if you were to drop this on a good set of hardwood floor or something like that. All right, next up, let's go to some fancier folders now. We've got new release from MKM and again Anso. This is the Goccia folder. Really cool design. They start about $200 for G10 or micarta versions, but the titanium ones here come in a little bit higher, about $250 to $260 depending on finish. This all blacked out one with the black stonewash sits at the top of that price range right now. Now the word Goccia in Italian actually means drop, and they named that because of this kind of ripple design going on the handles. Imagine a little drop hitting there and the ripples kind of spreading out. And that's what you get here. You get these lines. They're not sharp or aggressive, but they do give you a little more traction than a smooth handle would give you. And you even get that on the back side as well, because this is a liner lock as opposed to a frame lock. You got a nice deep carry pocket clip here, right side tip up. Blue in this particular one to match the back spacer and the pivot rings. Both sides of that, in fact. And a nice nested liner lock here in the handles. And the flipping action running on the ball bearings is quite good. And blade style or blade shape here, kind of similar story to that real steel we looked at earlier. You've got a little more width there at the heel of the spine and a very acute tip for that precision work. And again, a nice slicing profile with the particular line of the edge on this guy. And overall, to my eye, just some excellent lines that flow all the way through the handle right now. All right, next up, we've got a new brand for us here at the KnifeCenter, ANV, or Acta non Verba, which is Latin, I believe, for actions, not words. And I'm just gonna show 3 this week, but there is a bunch of stuff to take a look at in the upcoming weeks. The first is the Z100, and this guy comes in at about $130 right now. For your money in this case, you're getting a N690 blade, 3.3 inches, drop point, with about a half-length swedge here on the tip. That's gonna remove a little bit of drag on that section as you move that tip through some things, especially on radial cuts. And a nice crown spine here on the back with the full company name right there as well. Interestingly, because of the way they've kind of lasered that in, it's not quite as good as like dedicated jimping, but you do have a little bit of texture there to grab onto. Just a hint of it, kind of cool. Now there's several versions of this knife with different handle construction. We've got aluminum here with an aluminum frame on the back. Steel insert there on the frame lock, so you do get a nice solid lockup. But there's G10 and liner lock versions of this knife as well. Pocket clip, very deep carry with the wire clip here. In fact, it slots into the back end of the knife, and as you can see from the holes there, it is reversible for left or right carry. Now, the flipping action in this case, we don't have ball bearings on this guy. We are running on washers for this knife, which is gonna make it a little less susceptible to dust and grit and that sort of thing. So if you're using this in kind of a dirtier environment, that could definitely be a good thing. It does take a little bit more effort to flip than some knives out there, but it still does work quite well. And as you can see right here in the flipper tab, we've actually got a little glow-in-the-dark pip that runs through that flipper tab. Kind of neat also. And a little bit of a defining characteristic on a lot of their folders. You're gonna see that kind of across the range. Next up is the ANV Acta non Verba Z400, coming in a little bit more, about $145. And that's because you've got more blade here. You've got about 4 inches of steel, Sleipner steel as well, so different, slightly more expensive material. And you've got that dagger profile, but this is not actually double-edged. You've only got sharpened edge on the kind of the standard place where you would expect it for a folding knife. And you can see those glow-in-the-dark pips on the flipper tabs, as well as that kind of top flipper tab as well. Works kind of as a quillion, as well as working for some different opening methods. You could certainly kind of slow roll front flip that open, and it's also going to work as a pocket catch. So if you wanted to, don't call it an Emerson wave, but if you wanted to pocket deploy that, that would catch your the hem of your pocket when you angle it the way you want it to and rotate that blade very quickly. Just like the previous knife, we've got a nice stone-washed finish going on, which is going to make it give it nice rugged vibes over time, and as well as keep scratches from looking too out of place when you inevitably do scratch it. And as to the profile, Even though you don't have a sharpened edge here at the top, I've always liked kind of dagger grinds in general because it's essentially one big swedge. So you get that benefit of that very smooth shape as you're moving rotationally through materials all across the whole width or whole length of the blade itself. Handles, G10, inset liner lock going on here. Again, we're flipping on washers or on bearings. Sorry, yes, on washers, not bearings. And we've also got that deep carry pocket clip here, which is reversible. Only downside, I think, of the deep carry in this case with a knife that can be pocket deployed like this is it is going to be a little bit harder to get a hold of than some of the more dedicated tactical designs that are going to let it sit a little bit higher. Next up, one of their fixed blades. This is the M200 Hard Task, coming in at about 283. And it's very nicely made. We've got a 5-inch blade, just over 5 inches, in fact 5.1 of N690 with this black coating. The drop point is nice for all manner of things, whether it's outdoor, tactical, survival, any of that sort of stuff. You got a little bit of a hint of recurve as well. Not too aggressive though. It's certainly going to stand up, I think, to a lot of those hard tasks out there, which it better, given that that's what its name is. The steel there is thick enough to kind of take some of that abuse. It's about 0.2 inches thick, very durable. And the handle scales are bolted on with this ridged G10, kind of a really interesting grip. It's a little bit prescriptive in that it kind of points you forward or points the blade tip down just a little bit, almost like a pistol grip in a way. Some of the other holds you might want to put it in, such as choking up to like do some like carving a little bit more, are not quite as comfortable for me. It's kind of not intended for that, I think. It's more about locking your grip in, pushing through some material with a lot of force, or even using that tip to strike very effectively. Now you do have a nice section here. They did something interesting with the sharpening choil. You can see right around the radius it says fire steel. That section there is crisp enough. You could strike a fire steel with it and throw some sparks in a quote-unquote survival or even just a camp situation without either tearing up the edge of your knife or putting a crisp spine on the blade so you can strike it there, which would kind of detract from the comfort a little bit. And comfort like this, you got a nice crown spine, which is going to be very nice to use. Sheath-wise on this knife, we are dealing with a pancake-style Kydex sheath. On the back there, you can see we've got two kind of MOLLE-compatible style straps here, which are kind of detachable here at the back to help you thread it through. Nice drain hole here at the bottom. If the attachment method isn't to your liking, these are going to fit a large tech lock, no problem though. All right, next up, the Pentagon Fixed Blade series, Pentagon FX, in fact, has arrived from SOG. They're in the building, double-edged boot knife style daggers going on here. The large version comes in about $200, just under that, and we're about not quite 4 3/4 of an inch on the blade length of S35 VN, I might add. So really good materials. And as you can clearly see, definitely double edge going on here. There's no single edge profile for this one. The handles feel very nice. We've got these G10 grips bolted on to the S35 underneath, and it's that kind of typical boot knifey style shape. It's a little bit of a hybrid between that and something like some of the fighting knives out there. I'm thinking like the Fairbairn Sykes. A little bit of kind of that wasp shape going on. Not a direct copy. Don't misconstrue me, YouTube comments section. But you can kind of see some of that DNA going on here. Feels nice. I really like the thumb pads they've given you on either side here as well. It's a nice place for anchoring your grip. Now for the sheath on this large guy, they give you a lot of options. I'll start with the actual main bit of the sheath, of course. As you can see, clicks in. We've got a retention strap of a rubber-like material here to give you a little bit extra peace of mind. And then here on the back, we've got the UMS clip system. This can be threaded through your gear, and you essentially pinch these in and pull them open to kind of release from the plate there underneath. So once you get it into what you want it to stay, that's English, that makes sense, right?
No.
Too bad. Once you get it into what you want it to stay, you just push those clips. I can't. I'm sorry, folks. I let it get away from me. But you just push the clip back around to the backing plate right there to kind of secure it and keep it from sliding out. You've also got an alternate method here if you'd rather carry it kind of standard style on your belt rather than being clipped to some gear. There's 2 screws here. You can kind of take this backing plate off and use this attached right there, and it's going to give you another kind of secondary retention strap, as well as enabling a standard belt loop carry right there. I think even more than the large one though, the smaller version, which is the Covert, is really striking my fancy even more. This guy comes in about 150. Blade is about 3.3 inches long rather than 4.65-ish, or 4.7-ish, whatever it was on the other guy. Just the kind of the small, concealable feeling size of this guy is really appealing to me right now. Specs are otherwise pretty much the same. You've got S35 VN, G10 handles, and then even though it's a smaller handle, as you can see, all 4 of my fingers are fitting on there, no problem. And this also shows the alternate color. You've got a flat dark earth G10 here, which can be had on the full size as well, and you can get this Covert in all black if you want it that way too. But I think the sheath really is part of what is making me really, really dig this knife right now. Clicks in, hard plastic, but it comes with kind of a J-clip here on the back. Certainly can use this for standard belt carry, but this might even be slightly pocket friendly perhaps. So you could have a pocket boot knife, boot pocket knife. Double-edged pocket knife. Thomas is giving me nothing over here, but that's fine. I like the knife anyway, and I think you will too. Next up, another new brand for us this week, a more outdoor, bushcraft and survival-oriented brand. Fixed blades all the way. This is Joker Knives out of Spain, or Joker Sporting Knives. This particular model right here, well, I have 3 from their lineup, but a bunch of great stuff to look at. This one right here is the Lynx with a 4+ inch, about 4.2 N695 steel blade for just under $100. Really good price for the materials and especially for the fit and finish you're gonna get with this knife. It is very high-end feeling, much more than its low price would suggest, absolutely. The blade here is gonna be great for anything you wanna do in the outdoors, honestly. Small survival knife, hunting knife, standard camping, hiking knife, even a bit of bushcraft, even though you might want a Scandi grind instead. Some Scandi grind options in their lineup to check out at the link below. Just solid feeling overall in the hand too, thanks to the micarta with red liners and that really solid fit and finish. I mean, that's really the thing I want to stress about these knives is they're put together beautifully. Things are nice and flush there along the spine. Interesting treatment here with the jimping. They've actually kind of cut the handle down just a little bit so that the jimping does stick up while still being able to maintain that flush spine along the rest. Usually folks will either keep the handle flush with that so you don't get that sticking up, or they'll bring the whole handle down all around the radius so you get a little bit of a proud spine going on. Not the case here, and you see that a little bit here on the back as well. The tang protrudes just a little bit from the handle, so you're able to get some kind of bashing capabilities built into the back. Sheath on this one is black leather. Nice thick welts going on, thick enough leather that it's going to protect it very nicely, and a set of snaps on the belt loop there at the back. So if you don't like kind of taking your whole belt off to put the knife on or off, especially maybe if you're not outdoors the whole time, if you're kind of in and out of vehicles, in and out of town, you might want an easy way to take this on or off. You've got that with this guy right here. Next up is the Montañero, coming in about $95, and this one has a Sandvik 14C28N steel blade. About 4.3 inches here, and a bit of that classic trade knife vibe, or even like some of the old Pathfinder style knives we saw from a few companies out there, just a little shorter than some of those, with a full flat grind on this particular one. So in my mind, good hunting knife here and a good camp kitchen knife if you're looking for your camping belt knife to pull some kitchen duties, some food prep duties. This is going to do a really good job at that sort of thing, I think. A little bit of a correction. This one right here is actually comes in about $93 with the green micarta with red liners. But if you want something a little bit fancier, we've got Bacote wood for that $95 price point. That also comes with a full flat grind, as well as a curly birch option with a Scandi grind, and that one's going to come in a little bit over $110 right now. Speaking of that handle shape though, in addition to having kind of that versatile blade shape, you've got a versatile handle shape here that is going to be pretty accommodating to a lot of different hand sizes, because you've got that swell there at the back with kind of the gentle slope around it. So even if you do have really big hands, as you can see, I've still got plenty of room left on here. You're going to be able to hang off the back without feeling cramped whatsoever. Sheath, brown leather in this case, but it's still just as thick as the other guy, and it still has that excellent welt on the side. And on this case, you do have some snaps on the back, but only on the dangler here. So you can take that off very easily if you don't want your sheath to dangle. Fold it under, of course, if you don't want to actually remove it. And then you've got the standard belt loop, which can be used no problem as well. Now, speaking of some of those fancier wood-handled knives, we have a Nessmuk. You guys know I love it. Nessmuk S here with a walnut wood handle, coming in about 99 right now. Slightly thicker on the, well, no, not slightly thicker on the blade. Same blade thickness as the last guy. What are we dealing with exactly here? 0.14 inches thick. So decently thick. It's going to stand up to some abuse, no problem, especially again with the 14C28N steel that is used here. Nice, tough stainless steel, especially for a non-particle steel. You've got a lot of durability baked in. And in this case, we've got a Scandi grind on this particular Nessmuk as well. Now, it's always a little bit amusing to me personally to see Scandi grinds come out on Nessmuks, because, I mean, the Nessmuk is totally just an old school hunting knife, really. But kind of the bushcraft community and the wood carving sect of the bushcraft community has really embraced Scandis with a Nessmuk blade shape. So it's good to have a well-built option at least, and this certainly is. Like the Montañero, you're also going to have a handle shape that's going to work well with a wide variety of folks. Because of that shape, the walnut feels nice and warm in the hand, and I really like the accent of those black liners as well. Sheath in this case, actually I messed up. The sheath for this one is that brown leather one we just looked at. The sheath for the Montañero is this black leather one, but specs are still the same with that removable dangler. All right, next up, one more fixed blade for today. We actually had a few of these knives in Scandi ground Magna Cut right after Blade Show, but those are all sold out right now. But even better, I'm liking this full flat ground version of the Mako PG from Creely in 20 CV blade steel in this particular case. And this particular knife is coming in a bit over 200, I think about 220 right now. Really nice blade shape, small utility going on here. It's going to slice really well thanks to that grind and that thin blade stock. And the handle, really good for that small day-to-day stuff. And even be a pretty good whittling knife too. You've got enough of a grip going on, even though it does taper significantly here towards the back of this blue and black G10 handle. But the reason I think I'm loving these so much is down to the sheath again. This is definitely a pocket fixed blade, even if that SOG covert maybe is, maybe isn't. Excellent stitching on the leather here, feels very solidly put together, and you've got an ulti clip stitched into place on the front here. So you pop that open, you can set this right where you want it to be in your pocket or even on your belt, it doesn't matter, work for that as well. And then you just clamp it down and it's not going anywhere. It's gonna stay right in place and you'll be able to pull that out and cut what you need to cut, no problem. All right, we're gonna round out today with some axes, and we've got the second new model from American Tomahawk Company since RMJ Tactical bought them out. This is the Model 2 Tomahawk. Comes in about $239 right now, and they're all currently in this black configuration. And whereas the Model 1 was definitely more tactical, had a spike here on the back and a very narrow head going on, the Model 2 is kind of your bushcrafting or camping choice in their lineup, because for one, you have a hammer pole here at the back, so driving in tent stakes or pounding any sorts of camp projects, it's going to work nicely. And you've got a wider beard on the axe head itself with a cutout behind it, so you can get behind there and do some of that small work if you needed to with your hatchet blade. And that's actually going to feel pretty comfortable. You got the DuPont Super Tough handle here, so it's very, very tough. And it's got this kind of fraggy-like texture going on, but it's nice and rounded here at right below the head, so you have a solid grip. That's something that, you know, the next one we're going to look at doesn't quite have something like that. Still a good tool, but it's just a different style of tool. But this feels really good behind there. And the other advantage of this type of handle construction is you don't have a lot of weight from the handle itself. So all your force, all the weight is concentrated here in the head. It's gonna chop pretty nicely with this tough carbon steel. Sheath is Kydex, and it is very easy to get in and out, no problem. Some of these guys, especially the ones that have like a really aggressive spike, can get a little tricky, a little hairy sometimes getting out of the sheath or out of the mask, but this guy, no problems at all. And then you've got a nice strap here on the front with a pull the dot snap here that's gonna give you a little bit of extra retention. And since it's a pull the dot, it's not gonna come loose in an opposite direction. It will only come undone in the one direction it's designed to do that with. Last but not least is the significantly less expensive the Camp Plus hatchet, coming in at about 70 bucks and still made here in the USA though, which is quite nice. Materials wise, you've got a tough carbon steel going on here with a coating to help kind of keep rust at bay a little bit, and a micarta handle, a set of bolt-on micarta handle scales. Kind of has vibes of some of the Ranger knives that they used to make, like the Justin Gingrich designs. But the handle is a little bit smaller. It might be a little bit small for me personally. I kind of just have enough room in there, but I am cramped a little bit. But it does feel solid. The construction, certainly, I mean, it's a big old slab of steel. There's definitely a lot of durability baked into this. And using this at camp, no problem. Doesn't have a hammer pull, but you could probably have no problem really pounding in some tent stakes. Good hunting hatchet as well if you need something to break through bone. And then when it comes to the sheath on this one, no Kydex here, more classically inspired leather with a standard snap here, not a pull the dot, and a belt loop here on the back. So this is gonna be a very easy guy to kind of strap on and carry with you if you need it. All right, I know this was a long one. Thanks for sticking around. That is all I've got time to show you today. Make sure to let me know your favorites down in the comments, and to get your hands on any of these guys, we'll leave links in the description to take you over to KnifeCenter.com. Make sure you sign up for our Knife Rewards program, because if you're gonna buy one of these knives today, you might as well earn some free money to spend on your next one. I'm David C. Anderson from the Knife Center, signing off. See you next time.